All right, thanks very much. Welcome back to the show, everyone. Tiger Talk overtime on a Thursday night, and we're ready for the Sweet 16 in Atlanta, Georgia, Friday night at 8:39 Central Time. I want to welcome into the show Kevin Fickner, Mr. Auburn. Kevin, I know you're looking forward to Friday night.
Yes, War Eagle, Doug. Man, we're down to 16 teams, man. We've been talking about it all season, and here we are. We're one of the 16 remaining.
We got there. We got back to the 16, huh? All right, Brian Brinsfield is with us as well, former Auburn Tiger. And Brian, we're going to talk some basketball. We're also going to get into some college football this evening because spring practice is underway.
Let's do it. We got past the first round, past the first weekend. I know that was big for you. Auburn getting past the first weekend, we did it, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens this weekend. We've got 4 good teams and one we were familiar with, but we got some football to talk about as well. So that's fun. That's always fun.
Also, happy opening day to those who celebrate Major League Baseball opening day.
That's right. That's right.
I saw you had your Braves video up there, Kev.
Yes, 15 years ago today, Jason Hayward in his first Major League at bat hit a 3-run bomb, and
that's right.
Yours truly was there.
Really?
They beat.
I've got my Auburn baseball jersey on today. Supporting.
Yeah.
And where was that? Was that at the new field or not?
That was at, I want to say, Old Turner. Yeah, it was Old Turner. It wasn't the new field. It was Old Turner. And they beat the Cubs that day 16-5. And I believe Hayward is still in the major leagues. He's on the backside of his career, but I think might be with the Dodgers last year. I don't know if he's still with them or not, but he's still hanging around 15 years later.
Yeah.
I think I know he won a World Series ring with the Cubs. Don't know about anybody else.
Yeah. Well, I even heard Bruce Pearl talk about getting to the Sweet 16 this week in a couple of podcasts that I watched that he was on. So I know that was important to him to get back there and to get to Atlanta. It's going to be fun. And as you guys mentioned, it's kind of like the SEC Big Ten Challenge this weekend because we got Auburn, the number 1 overall seed. We got Ole Miss playing well. We beat them 3 times this year. And we've got Michigan and Michigan State from the Big Ten. So, Kevin, start us off with the Wolverines a little bit. What you're thinking about Auburn at this point, and we go up against Michigan first on Friday night. They've got, of course, Trey Donaldson, who was at Auburn last year, and they've got a couple of big guys. I think Golden is one, and then the kid that was at Yale last year, right? Wolf.
That's correct.
Both 7-footers. And how do you think that plays this week? Broom had a little bit of trouble last week with a big guy, and I didn't think he was that great. So what do you think?
Well, we talked about this last week. We talked about stories of March Madness. We didn't get Louisville. We got Creighton. We beat them. But look who we have now. We have Trey Donaldson, like you mentioned, and Wolf, who beat us last year when he was with Yale. Their 2 big guys are their go-to guys. But thankfully, we have 2 big guys that can hopefully counteract them or at least, knock them down a little bit, control them a little bit. I think it's going to come down to point guard play. And if we have Tahad play like he played last weekend, they should be able to do a little bit more than Trey and the other point guards that Michigan has. They are hot right now, but I think we're here for a reason. You look at the teams that have beaten with each other within the top 16 remaining. Auburn has beaten the most teams out of those 16, and hopefully we'll get another check mark next to our name after tomorrow night. It's going to be a home game. Vegas likes this for some reason. 9.5 points. Yeah. That's one of the biggest spreads of the weekend. I mean, I didn't think it'd be that big, but Vegas likes this. It's going to be a home game. Auburn North or Auburn East. I know people are buying those tickets up, and hopefully we get a chance to play Sunday against either Ole Miss for the 4th time or Michigan State, the old SEC Big Ten Challenge. But, the guys are doing real good right now. I mean, there's always things to work on. Is Chris Moore healthy? He didn't play at all in the second game last weekend. But Tahad stepped up. Chaney, we need some more out of him, obviously. Janai didn't have his best game, but we won. Dylan played great defense, a little bit of offense here and there, but he's mainly known for his defense. And can the guys step up? I think they will. I mean, we played – we're used to Atlanta. We're used to that stadium. We destroyed Ohio State there earlier this year. We beat Memphis there previous years. We like that stadium. Hopefully Miles Kelly will like that like he did Lexington and to shoot lights out.
Yeah.
So we'll see. A lot of good things to look forward to. I'm excited. Hopefully we can do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a big factor, Brian, this weekend. Obviously, with Auburn being only an hour and a half or 2 hours away, taking the bus trip to State Farm Arena up there, it's going to be, I would think, unbelievably slanted toward Auburn. And as Kevin mentioned, to Todd Pettiford, what a difference maker he was the last couple of games. And if he can perform like that this coming weekend, I think it's going to be a good weekend for Auburn.
Yeah, let me just say off the top, if you're looking for tickets, I might know somebody who has some. But listen, there's a couple points that I want to make. To Hyde, let's start with Hyde. He always, in the season, in every game you heard, the broadcaster said he came through in big games. He struggled down the stretch maybe a little bit, but boy did he come through in the NCAA tournament and some in the SEC tournament. But in those games in the SEC, in the NCAA, he just poured it on. And I don't know if we make it past the first weekend without what he did. They talk about Florida's front court, that their three guys in the front court are great. I think we've got just as good of a front court if you add to Hyde in there with Denver and Miles. If you put those three guys against Florida's, I think we're just as good. You were talking about the big guys. I'm gonna stop right here and say that Dylan Cardwell did what needed to be done after the first game, and that probably solidifies him to me as what we consider an Auburn man or woman. He's a man though, so an Auburn man. An all-time Auburn man, because he said, "Listen, guys," he called. I mean, number one, he called him out. So did Junior after the game. But then he went in, and it sounds like they had a pretty good team meeting. And Dylan said, "I don't want to go home. I want a free freaking breakfast.
I want that free breakfast, baby."
And he got it, and good for him, because a couple of weeks ago I said, somebody's got to step up, and we were talking about CBM, we were talking about Chad, and somebody's got to maybe take the reins and be the Jordan to the Rodman. But Dylan did it. Dylan really did it, and he said it. He didn't mince words. He said it at the locker. He said it at the table, and he said, "This is what's going to have to happen." And I'm not willing to walk away from my career because somebody's not going to give effort.
Yeah.
God bless that kid. And he went out, and not only did he say it, he went out there and did it. I mean, he doesn't get a lot of points, but he had 4 and 3 within about 10 minutes into the game. And that's not usually Dylan. So he was really doing it to the point where
he can switch out. He guards point guards. He can guard the shooting guard. Not every big man can do that. The stuff that doesn't show up on the stat sheet, he does so well. He's 6'10", 6'11", and he can guard the point guard.
So going back to the bigs, they're 2 7-footers. I don't know that they can run the court like our bigs can. So you put Janai and Dylan. If we're going to call them our big, 6'11" and 7 foot, over 7 foot, I think they're more athletic than their 7-footers.
So are you saying, Brian, that Auburn might run the fast break this week?
I'm saying we can. I'm saying that's an option, and we need to be prepared for it, because I think if they're going to put 2 7-footers on there that aren't that athletic, let's use that to our advantage.
Yeah.
Again, Bruce hadn't called me. He left me out of the pregame meetings, but that's what I would do.
Yeah. Well, he might substitute you in there for Steven one of these weeks.
Maybe.
They may need you. But the other thing I thought about, and what, Kevin, to your point, wouldn't it be interesting if you had Dylan Cardwell matching up on a point guard this week, which would be Trey Donaldson? And you're right. He does such a great job. He's quick enough to do that. And if they get by him a little bit, sometimes he goes in there and blocks their shot. And the other thing that comes to mind is with Wolf being at Yale last year, what do you think the first thing he thought about when he saw that Auburn was matched up against Michigan?
He probably told everybody, and Trey can probably do the same thing. who's going to rile up CBM? How are we going to get him ejected?
Yeah.
That's
Exactly.
probably something they probably talked about. They
Yeah.
probably said, who's going to poke the bear?
Yeah.
Because look what happened last year.
Yeah.
I'm sure the Bears are ready to be poked, and he's been good the first two games. Hope his little skinny butt hip is okay. But I mean, Wolf can shoot the three. He beat us last year, obviously, with Yale. Trey knows our system. He knows our people. But I will say this, going back to last week, I'm sure Dylan was part of this, but that 45-year-old point guard with two kids was talking to the camera saying, you can't guard me with whatever time left. And we shut him down the rest of the game.
Second
He did
half.
not score a point until 30 seconds to go in the game. Our defense is so good. Denver, CBM, Dylan, Tahad, Janai. I mean, our defense is going to really help us win some of these games when we're going through cold spurts on offense. The defense helps out so much.
Yeah.
I feel so much better though when Miles is hitting threes. When he's cold, I get a little nervous, but when he is hot, man, I start to feel good because that opens up the bottom half of the court for us to do a lot of things. And so I really hope that either Denver or Miles, somebody's hot from the perimeter early, and that opens up our bottom of our court.
One thing also I noticed last week is that Creighton didn't even guard Dylan.
No.
So he was able to do screens and picks and Tahad or whoever would do those floaters. But I wonder if something that's because he's not much an offensive threat other than dunks. I wonder if Michigan may lay off him a little bit and double Janai or put people in different positions to help double because Dylan is not much of a threat.
But you know what? Where we struggled in the SEC tournament and against Alabama and against who was it? A&M was in the paint and especially on rebounds. So if they don't guard him, he's free to crash the board and go get that rebound and put it back up. So let him not guard him. And I think that's one thing we were much better at in the tournament in those two games was number one, points in the paint, and we out rebounded both teams, both on offense and defense, and then total rebounds. So if we do those things, again, it's going to come down to just the fundamentals of basketball, not turning it over. How well do we shoot? Shooting from the free throw line, we got to do it.
Dylan.
Got to have better shooting from the free throw line.
Yeah. And to your point, Brian, about one of the guys being hot, when I listened to Coach Pearl this week, and this is obvious in March Madness, but the team that gets hot, which is usually the team that shoots it in March Madness, like we did in 2019, is usually the team that gets to the Final Four and has some success. So I think not only Miles or not only Denver or not only Tahad, but how about let's have two of them, three of them, all shooting it at the same time.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'd feel much better if we had three than just Miles, but I love when Miles hits them. Yeah. I feel good when he hits them, when we have somebody at least. But, yeah, let's have five of them hitting threes.
Because he has his foot on the logo, right?
That's right.
When he shoots it.
Yeah. I still would like to see Janai not shoot so many threes. I know he's trying to get ready for the next level, but I don't think he made one last weekend. I don't know if he took 7 to 10. Just give it up to the guys that can do that, and you go set a screen or get down low. We've had enough. I've had enough of Janai missing these threes, and of course the free throws. My goodness, Janai. I know he's trying, but boy, he has not been much of a help on the free throw line, and he's the potential national player of the year.
Yeah. And I had a good friend of mine that I went to Auburn with text me the same thing after the ball game last weekend. Like, don't let Janai shoot those threes anymore because he's not been very successful with them. But it will be interesting to see, I think, if he can make some moves and do that left-hand bank shot this week against those guys, against Michigan, who has some height. And Michigan State, I watched them a little bit. Ole Miss, of course, is in there too. The big thing about Ole Miss is that's the difference in us and them is they don't have any bigs. So Michigan State is tough. It looks like to me, not a ton of talent, but always well coached with Izzo, and they're going to be tough. They're going to be gritty. And like you said, Brian, we got to make those free throws down the stretch. That could be a big factor in a game with Michigan or Michigan State or Ole Miss even.
Yeah. I listen. I don't want to look to the future, but if we do get past Michigan, I'd rather play an Ole Miss because we know them. We beat them twice. We beat them by 30 almost.
3 times.
Three times. Was it three?
Yeah.
And and I don't like. I wouldn't want to be against Tom Izzo in the tournament, but I think we got a great chance against Michigan, and Auburn fans should be incredibly happy. It's going to be a fun atmosphere, I think, in Atlanta, and we've got as good a shot as anybody in the tournament, I think, to win this thing. We're playing better, and I think that's where I'm optimistic. We're playing better than we were even a week and a half ago. So the excitement's kind of back.
No question about it. It's going to be fun to see, Kev, this weekend in Atlanta, Georgia. It's going to be almost like Neville.
Yeah, I mean, and also for those guys that have been a little banged up, like Janai and others, they're getting more time off between games now. Yes, we played 2 last weekend, but look, it's been 6 days since we played, so they're not having that midweek SEC game. So, and we talked about this too. They're not having to play SEC competition, so we do look good again. We are okay here and there, but we have potential to play an SEC school, Sunday. But like Brian said, I look forward to that more than Michigan State any day of the week. And people say, "Oh, you can't beat them 4 times." Well, I got a feeling we probably could, but we'll worry about that if we get there and they get there. But I think we're getting a little bit healed up in between these 2-game weekends, weekend games.
Yeah,
I think each bracket has 2 SEC teams. I was worried about the SEC as touted as we were. I was thinking, oh God, we're going to go in there and just bomb. But I think each of the brackets has 2 SEC teams except one. One of the brackets has 1 SEC team. 3 has 2. So I think the SEC as a whole showed up and did pretty well.
They're proven to be the best conference.
7 teams, and then the Big 10, the Big 12, and one from the ACC, which is Duke.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that works. 8:39 Central Time, 9:39, a late game in Atlanta, Georgia on Friday night. So enjoy that one. Let's come back and talk a little bit of college football in just a minute as spring practice is underway. We'll do that in just a minute. Thanks for being with us on Tiger Talk Overtime. Back in just a minute.